Hi, as you know, I am Kaylin, and today we're going to be looking at an overview of the TNA web interface. Now, there's two different web interfaces that you get. You get the one that is the onboard on the clock itself, which you would obviously then use that software that's in there, or else you would get then the TNA web interface, which is the web interface for the TNA software. So if we move over then, now obviously this is just an overview, so I've already pre-set up the settings for the web interface in terms of the IP address and things like that, and I've also set up a web administrator user for me that we can just use to log in today then. In the next session I will then be going through on how to set up the web interface and then also adding a new user and setting up who you may and may not see, etc., etc. So I'm going to then, what I've done is in my internet browser, I have put in the IP address of my web interface, my web server, and I'm going to enter the login details for my web administrator. Now you can also then, depending on who you want to have what access, you can set up either an operator or then obviously the web administrator, which is what I have set up here. Obviously then, like a casual employee or something, for argument's sake, that would need to clock in and just check a few things, will obviously not have as much access rights as a web administrator, etc., etc. So the first screen that always pops up, no matter who you are that you're logging into, is your single day view. This is basically a summary of today's happenings. So if you would come in here, you would then view any clockings that are there or errors or obviously daily hours at the end of the day, warnings, etc., etc. Quick summary there. Also, if you have forgotten to clock in today, obviously you can see there's no clockings for me. So I can either then just clock in now, which will clock me in at 4 o'clock, or else I can obviously go and put in the time for 8 o'clock. If I obviously just put that in, we'll see that it just adds a clocking for 4 o'clock there. And you can obviously then clock out as well. So, if you've got your employees that can clock in or can log into the web interface and just manually, add their clocking if they forgot to clock, they would obviously see this screen. More than likely, that would pretty much be all they're going to see, and it'll clock them in or not. You can obviously set whether they can access these buttons and change any information, etc., etc. So that's your quick summary. It's a single day view, which is the first screen that opens. If we move on to the left-hand side here, you'll see your first block that you have here. This block basically pertains to everybody. So just like you would have in your user module, you would have either then your your daily clockings view for your singular employee, or you would have your global clockings view where you would actually then see all the clockings for everybody there. This is basically the same thing as more on a global basis, if I can say. Obviously, if you're going to go to your employees, you're going to view all your employees' information, and you can change that and add any information and obviously access various things from the screen then, which pertains to whichever employees you have selected. For argument's sake, if I had to go to that employee and click on daily hours, I know that there are some hours on in Jan somewhere. You can see that it'll display all the daily hours for that employee there. The same thing with any of the other buttons. You can access any of that information. If I go to the errors windows here, you will obviously see all the errors for all the employees for the dates that you have selected. Same thing with your daily roster. You've got then your rosters that you can add for your employees if you're using rostering. So depending on your shift setup, you can obviously go and enter the rostering for a specific employee, on which days they are and on which shift they are there. You also then have your clockings, once again, that you're going to be viewing for everybody, not just one person. The same thing with your leave. You can also just add, change, and delete anything, in those screens. You've got your daily hours, which you can also then view for all the employees, not just one guy. You can obviously also then view warnings from there, authorize any overtime or do rostering or clocking. It's just that you're seeing for everybody, not just one guy, Same thing with payroll hours. And then also the last one is your warnings, which once again you're viewing for everybody, not just one guy. So that is more like say on your global basis that you are seeing all that information. Now if we move over to the second block, if I just go back to employee screen quickly, you'll see that this employee has been selected Paula. Yeah. If we choose John for argument's sake, you'll see that that name changes there. So this little screen pertains to whichever name has been selected here. So I'm going to leave it on there. If we go to today, it'll bring up our little single day view, which is the same screen that popped up in the beginning. The only difference there is that it was actually displaying the information for me, which is me that logged in. It'll display that information. In this case now I have gone and selected an employee, so it is actually displaying the information for that employee there. You'll see that there's obviously no clockings here, and you'll know that I added a clocking in for me there. Same thing with the timesheet here. You can see then all your information in terms of errors and clockings and daily hours. You can come and view in the screen. Once again, this is for this particular employee there. Same thing with the leave, that you would then go and add any leave that he needs, that he'll be taking, either in the calendar view or then in your list view. You can go and add those leave types. And then obviously depending on your setup, whether you've got then, whether your summary will then be active in terms of leave earned, etc., there that you would view there. And then you've got your daily rostering, which is the same thing basically as your rostering there, except that you're only seeing this one employee here. So you'll see at the top you're doing the roster for this particular employee, and you can obviously go and allocate that accordingly. You then have also your cards, which is allocated to that employee. You can go and assign any new cards that you need to do there. Currently, obviously, there's no cards assigned to this employee. If we had to move on to your payroll shifts, you can obviously go and put this employee on a specific shift. This is basically your shift history screen, which is in your user module. You would then obviously go and insert from which date he would be on whichever shift that may be, and you can obviously go and enter that there. You can obviously then also go and change or delete any information, pretty much the same throughout all the screens there. If we go into charge rates, depending on your setup again of your shifts, whether you're actually using charge rates or not, you can go and assign certain charge rates to this employee for particular days so that it can actually allocate those hours accordingly. You also then have your last tab here, which is your employee details. This is pretty much the same as your Browse Employees window, where you would go and change on the employee and you can fill in any information that is needed there, with regards to shifts or whatever that may be in classifications, your employment history. You can set all that information there. Medical is pretty much all the same as what you have in your Browse Employee screen there. Okay, so you can go and edit or change any information for this employee there. And then we move on to, so I'm going to just minimize these. We move on to the third one, which is pretty much not too much going on there. You can pretty much change your password there. So whichever user has been logged in, I can obviously go and change my password to whatever I want that to be then. Under your tasks menu, you can obviously go and schedule a reprocess here. So if you have made, add a whole lot of leave entries or clockings, etc., and you just want to make sure that everything has been taken into account for your payroll, you can then do a reprocess. This is exactly the same as doing a bulk process in your user module. You can also then go and set the shifts. So just as you went and set the shifts for that particular employee, you can go and set the shifts for multiple employees in this window. You can go and specify certain employees, per department or whatever that may be, or everybody, and you can put them on a particular shift from that date there. And then if we look at the last one in that tab, you've got your bulk overtime, which you can pretty much go and authorize overtime also in bulk for multiple or per department, depending on what classifications you've got set up. You can go and do that in that tab there. So that's your task menu. If you look at the last one is your security menu. You've got then your browse user groups, which you can set up specific groups to have specific access. Obviously there's no group set up yet. Let's say for argument's sake you've got a operators group, and you've got a normal users group, and you've got an administrator group. You can obviously then go and set up those three groups and assign particular rights to that group. And obviously if you then assign your user then to that actual group, they would then get those specific access rights. So that brings us then to the second one, which is our browse users. Here you can obviously go and add multiple users. Here you can see it's my user that's been added. You can see what my login details, and you cannot see any passwords or anything funny on there. You can obviously go and either change that user and just set them to either operator or administrator, or if they mustn't have access at all, you can go and set that up. Or obviously you can go and delete then certain users as well then if it's an operator or so. You then have your third one under security, third menu, which you would then go and set this menus that you are seeing here on the left hand side. You would set the access rights for that in the screen. So if we had to look here, you'll see you've got then your employees, which is those ones, your errors, your daily rostering, your clockings. You can go and set what this user may have access to. So that's your web interface. I hope that you've learned something and that you will join me next time when we go through the web interface in a little bit more detail.